Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Tammy at Glitterati here on YouTube, where everything sparkles. Today I'm going to be doing a work in progress on Dreamer Designs-Lily Lagoon, and we'll be telling a true crime story. So if you really like this video, I would appreciate if you would hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you so much. So this story is going to be about Brittany Norwood. On the morning of Saturday, March 12th, 2011, employees of the Lululemon yoga store in downtown Bethesda, Maryland, arrived to begin their day's work. Saturdays are typically busy for retail workers, but this one would be unlike any that the Lululemon sales staff had experienced before. As they entered the store, they noticed that the place was in disarray with merchandise scattered hither and fro. When they saw the bloody footprints and then, in a rear corridor, a truly horrific sight. The store manager, 30-year-old Jana Murray, lay on the floor, her body drenched in blood that was also spattered on every surface. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling. One of the employees immediately reached for her phone and dialed 911. The other checked the rest of the service area and found another of their colleagues lying on the floor in a storeroom. It was Brittany Norwood, a 29-year-old sales assistant. She had been luckier than Jana Murray. She had survived. Police and paramedics were soon on the scene, and Brittany was rushed to the hospital, where she received treatment for cuts to her stomach, breasts, and face. But her injuries were nothing compared to those inflicted on Jana Murray. The store manager had been stabbed, slashed, and beaten, suffering 330 separate wounds, inflicted with an array of weapons. She had been bludgeoned with a heavy steel stand used to support a mannequin. She'd been beaten with a hammer. She'd been slashed with a box cutter. She'd been strangled with a length of rope. Finally, she'd been stabbed with a knife, one thrust driven right through her neck from side to side, the second rammed through her skull into her brain. It was the most horrific crime scene that most of the investigators had ever attended. Wow, that is very brutal. But at least the police had an eyewitness, someone who could provide a description of the monster or monsters who had done this. According to Brittany, she had been the last employer, except for Jana, to leave the store the previous evening. However, she hadn't gone far before she realized that she'd left her wallet behind. She then called Jana and asked if she could return to retrieve it. It was while Jana was letting her in that they were ambushed by two masked men. The men forced them back into the store and then attacked them and sexually assaulted them. During the attack, Brittany had been dragged to the storeroom where her hands were bound with cable ties. One of the attackers had then cut the crotch of her jeans and had sexually assaulted her before leaving. Which, that's kind of strange. Most people just rip the jeans off and they don't cut the crotch out of that jeans. That seems a little weird. She had remained in the storeroom, drifting in and out of consciousness until she was found the next morning. On the face of it, this seemed like a credible story. There had been a call from Brittany's phone to Jana's at the time she said. There was evidence that Jana had been sexually assaulted, and the police had found size 14 sneaker prints tracked through the victim's blood all over the store. In no time at all, the police had launched a massive hunt for the perpetrators and were following up on multiple tips from the public. But doubts soon began to emerge over the credibility of Brittany's story. It started with a report by employees of the Apple store that stood adjacent to Lululemon, a report of female voices raised in a furious argument. Then there was testimony from two Lululemon employees. A sales clerk reported that Jana had phoned her shortly after closing on Friday. Jana had asked if the clerk had sold a pair of yoga pants to Brittany that day. The woman had said that she had not. The other employee was Jana Murray's boss. According to her, Jana had called her on Friday evening to report that she suspected Brittany Norwood of stealing. Aha. The two of them had resolved to sort it out in the morning. Of course, Jana would be dead by then. With the gaze of suspicion now turned firmly on Brittany Norwood, detectives began to look into her background. What they found was a young woman with a propensity for taking things that did not belong to her. Although she'd never been arrested for theft, Brittany had a reputation for being light-fingered. She'd even lost a college scholarship after she was caught stealing from her teammates on the soccer team. Investigators now began to wonder if Jana had confronted Brittany over the stolen yoga pants and had been attacked as a result. Boy, that's a pretty bad thing to lose a college scholarship. I mean, is it really worth it? I don't think so. It was an interesting theory, but one that had some distinct flaws to it. First, there was the savagery of the attack. Could a murder that brutal really have been committed over an accusation of shoplifting? Right, that's what I'm saying. Then there was the sexual assault, certain in Jana's case, inconclusive in the case of Brittany. Finally, there were the bloody footprints, evidence that there had been someone else in the store on the night of the murder. Or had there? In the aftermath of the murder, the police had asked Lululemon staff to carry out a stock check to determine if anything had been taken. Only one item was missing, and you guessed it. It's a pair of men's size 14 sneakers. A fresh search was now conducted, and the shoes were found hidden in the storeroom. They were sent to the lab for DNA testing, which returned the result that investigators had expected. Brittany Norwood's DNA was found inside the sneakers. There was only one way it could have gotten there. The police now believed that they had a pretty good idea of what had happened inside Lululemon on that fateful evening. It was company policy for the manager to search all employees' bags when they left the store. Jana must have checked Brittany's bag and found the pair of yoga pants. Caught with the item in her possession, Brittany claimed that she'd bought the pants, even naming the sales assistant who had recorded the transaction. Jana then allowed her to leave, but immediately thereafter, she called the clerk to confirm the story. After being told that Brittany had lied about purchasing the yoga pants, Jana called her boss to report that she suspected Brittany of stealing. By now, Brittany was on her way home, but she must have known that the game was up. She probably realized that she would be fired in the morning and may have feared that the theft would be reported to the police. This is why she called Jana back, claiming that she had left her wallet behind. Her real intention was to silence the woman who could report the theft. She could not have known that Jana had already reported her indiscretion. I can't even imagine the thought of killing somebody in such a brutal manner over a stolen pair of yoga pants. Anyways, Brittany Norwood was arrested on March 18, 2011, and charged with first-degree murder. Murder. I love saying that. Under questioning, she almost immediately admitted to the crime, although she claimed that it had happened on the spur of the moment and denied premeditation. This was the story that she would carry with her into the trial and attempt, no doubt, to secure a lighter sentence. But the evidence in this case was overwhelming as it was horrific. Medical evidence indicated that Jana Murray had been conscious throughout the entirety of the attack. Oh my gosh. She had felt every blow, experienced every moment of terror. During that time, Norwood had broken off several times to look for a new weapon to mutilate her victim with. Jana had tried to ward off many of the blows, suffering 122 defensive wounds to her arms and hands in the process. Norwood had also sexually assaulted her with a blunt object, possibly a hammer handle, to simulate the rape that she would later report to the police. The killing blows had been delivered with a large kitchen knife, which, where did she get a kitchen knife from in a Lululemon store? I don't know. Which had been driven through the victim's throat and into her brain. And you would think that that would have been enough, but no, she had to sexually assault her too. That seems a little excessive. Then Norwood had donned the size 14 sneakers and tracked bloody footprints through the store in a crude effort to mislead the police. Finally, she'd inflicted superficial wounds on herself and then used cable ties to bind her own hands, making it look like she too was a victim. Modern juries typically deliberate for days, even weeks, in a first-degree murder trial. In this case, the jurors were out for less than an hour before they returned to pronounce Brittany Norwood guilty as charged. Norwood would later take the stand during the sentencing phase to plead for mercy. She said, "Not for myself, but for my parents." Unfortunately for her, Judge Robert Greenberg was not in a merciful mood. He said, "I have no doubt that you are a deeply troubled woman. However, my sympathy for your plight does not begin to approach what I feel for the Murray family." He then sentenced Norwood to the maximum penalty allowed under Maryland law, life in prison with no possibility of parole. And again, I ask you, was that even remotely worth it? She's going to spend the rest of her life in jail with no possibility of parole over a pair of stolen yoga pants. Well, not just the stolen yoga pants, but the fact that she had to murder her boss to cover it all up. I don't know. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so that was a pretty gruesome story, and I really don't want to end on a bad note like that. So let's read a story of positivity. This little story is called "Is the Jar Full?" and it's about priorities. A university professor that wanted to make a point about the importance of prioritizing how we spend our time. The professor stood in front of her class with a display of items. She took a large empty jar and filled it with small rocks. She asked the class if the jar was full, and they agreed yes, the jar was full. The professor took a bowl of white pebbles, added them to the jar, and gave it a little shake to move the pebbles into the open areas around the rocks. The professor asked the class again if the jar was full, and again they agreed that yes, it was full. Finally, the professor took a box of sand and added it to the jar, filling the spaces between the rocks and the pebbles. She asked again, "Is the jar full now?" And they laughed and agreed, yes, it's full. This jar represents your life. The big rocks signify the really important things in your life, such as physical and mental health, family, and friends. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. And the sand signifies the remaining small stuff, such as material possessions. Now, if you were to reverse the order of filling the jar and add the sand first, there would not be enough room for the rocks and the pebbles. The same principle applies to your own life. If you spend too much time on the small stuff, you won't have enough space or time to focus on the things that are truly important, those little rocks. So the moral of the story, prioritize the rocks first. Practice self-care, spend quality time with the people you love. The rest is just pebbles and sand, and they will always find some space. And with that being said, that's one of the reasons why I decided to downsize my workload. I used to work in 2 nursing homes, which I'm sure you can imagine is very stressful. And it was hard to manage 150 people between the 2 nursing homes. I'm not a clinical person. I was the business office manager, and it just became too overwhelming. And I just decided that I needed to prioritize what was important to me and value my mental health over the amount of money that I was making. And that story kind of just sums it up. I mean, there's always going to be little stuff that's going to filter into your life, but what's really important, is your family and friends, and that's what you need to focus on. That's what will truly give you happiness. So I hope you enjoyed my video today, and if you liked my stories and you want to hear more, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. And as always, I will see you in my next video, and I hope you have a super sparkly day. Thanks for watching.